U.S. is threatening to cut intelligence sharing and weapons to Ukraine. That's according to Reuters. It comes as the White House ramps up its efforts to end the war in Ukraine. In fact, a 28-point peace plan is currently in the works, and the White House is reportedly giving Ukraine until next Thursday to agree to it. But right now, it's not clear if Ukraine will agree to some of the points in that deal. They include giving up their eastern Donbas region and Crimea and no NATO membership. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky acknowledged the proposal with a post on X. He wrote that Ukraine values, quote, the efforts of the United States, President Trump, and his team aimed at ending this war. He goes on to say, we are working on the document prepared by the American side. This must be a plan that ensures a real and dignified peace. We've got team coverage for you. Standing by for us is Donesian Rui, a fellow for the Europe, Russia, and Eurasia program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. But first, we're going to go live to Washington and CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi. Olivia, thank you for joining us today. You actually have some updates out of the White House on all of this, right? So what do we know at this point?
Well, Muga, it's good to be with you. We do know that President Trump has approved this 28-point plan in an effort to get an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine. Some of the points that are mentioned in this plan are an immediate ceasefire. Ukraine is expected to give up part of that eastern region that has been under Russian control since the war started. It would also cap its military. The Ukrainian military at the start of the war was about 250,000 people. It has ballooned up to 880,000 people, according to Ukrainian estimates, and it would cap it under this plan at about 600,000. It's quite notable there. It would also essentially end the path to NATO membership for Ukraine, which is a huge sticking point for the countries. We know that would give them Article 5 protection, that in the future, if they were to be attacked by Russia, there would be a robust response from the 27-member bloc that makes up NATO. Certainly quite a deterrent there. But this all came, of course, as there was a renewed effort to get an end to this war. We know that Steve Witkoff, the special envoy to the president, met with Kirill Dmitriev in Miami on October 24th, where they hammered out at least the Russian parts of this plan, with the things that Russia needs to end their aggression, their war in Ukraine. We also know that Army Secretary Dan Driscoll met with Ukrainian President Zelensky in Ukraine this week. We are also told from the Ukrainians that Vice President Vance and Zelensky are expected to talk at some point today about these details. So we are waiting for more White House information on that. But at this point, this is the latest renewed effort to get somewhat of an end to this war in Ukraine. We should also note, though, happening simultaneously, along with the pressure from this White House to the Ukrainians to get them to end this war, are sanctions that are now being put on the Russians, on Russian oil, on Russian energy, in an effort to squeeze them. So it appears to be a two-prong approach from this White House on both sides to get them back to a table, try to end this. As we know, President Trump has been in pursuit of not only a Nobel Peace Prize, but trying to end this war in Ukraine. He has worked in trying to bring Putin to the U.S. as a form of flattery. He has told Zelensky he doesn't have the cards and then to back him. It's been a very, very long, torrid affair between President Trump, Ukrainian President Zelensky, and President Putin in an effort to get somewhat of an end to this war. This is the latest effort, and we'll have to see what happens.
Exactly. We shall wait and see. Olivia Rinaldi, thank you so much. Now let's bring in Donesian Rui. Donesian, thank you for joining us today. So if you are Russia, does this proposal seem like a win?
To some extent, yes, especially on the territorial potential concessions that are being given, freezing the lines where they are. These are things that Ukraine has long said it was not open to, aside perhaps from Crimea. But giving Luhansk, Crimea, and Donetsk, that is quite a win for Russia. In addition to the NATO commitment, obviously Ukraine has enshrined in its own constitution that it will join NATO. NATO members have been very open to NATO membership. And should this plan be agreed to with the NATO provision, that is quite a big win for Russia.
And you say, should this plan be agreed to? There's still some uncertainty there, obviously. So what do you see as the major hurdles ahead?
So there are two sides. On the one hand, we just heard from your colleague that there will be talks today President Zelensky is going to talk to Vice President Vance, but there's also a flurry of activity in Europe right now. In Brussels, the phones are blowing up, I think, because the Europeans are trying to align their position on this. The 28-point plan mentions Europe quite often, but it's not clear that Europeans were consulted very deeply for some of the provisions of this plan. And there are some that they might not agree to, especially on the frozen assets or even the NATO membership, because aside from Canada and the United States, every other NATO member obviously is in Europe. So there's two sides of the hurdle. We're going to see what Ukraine says, obviously, and then we're going to see what Europe says, because they're obviously crucial to this agreement.
Yeah, they really are. Donesi and Rui, thank you so much for your insight. Appreciate your time today.